Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, there's certain things that I just wish people could get. I wish they could understand. Because with a lot of this stuff, it just takes one little seed being planted. You just gotta see how the cookie's made once, and then you can't unsee it and you are forever red-pilled. And the concept that we're covering today is the concept of government waste. I had a really interesting clip pop up on my timeline today. Might as well actually play it right now.
How much wasteful spending do you see in the government?
Massive.
Yeah, right?
Massive amounts. But okay, let me rephrase that. What do you mean wasteful? If you mean wasteful in the sense that it isn't serving the intended purpose or it's actually counterproductive with respect to what we would consider to be positive economic growth, horribly wasteful. If you look at it from the perspective of how good is it at supporting particular constituencies in order to make sure people get reelected, it's some of the most efficient stuff you've ever seen on the planet. Whenever you see something that you think this is so stupid, who would have come up with it this way? I promise you it's somebody very smart for a purpose they're not telling you.
And that had me connecting all kinds of dots, and I thought, you know what? I know exactly how to explain this because people need to understand this. A lot of the times, what we refer to as government waste isn't necessarily waste at all. No, it's very purposeful spending that always serves some interest. There's always somebody's pocket being lined. There's always an interest or an ambition being met. At the end of the day, a lot of these social programs, a lot of the money that's being spent is funding some sort of racket. You know, it's not this concept of wasteful spending where money's being taken and it's going literally nowhere or it's just being thrown down or pissed down the drain. No, it's money that's being funneled into these money laundry, big government rackets where they essentially create these industries, let's call them. And I think probably the perfect example to red pill people on this topic is what's known as the homeless industrial complex. Homelessness is a government spending industry that so many of these useless bureaucrats literally depend on. It's a big government lobbying racket, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I want to have a conversation about that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, I want to start off with this video. I thought it was fantastic. There's some people who make such great use of the platform and put together some really informative, short, punchy content. Take a look at this.
I'm a public administrator.
How much do you make?
$242,000 a year.
Can you describe what you do in one sentence?
I oversee homeless programs for a very large nonprofit in the city of Los Angeles.
That's a big role. And what's your biggest struggle in that job?
Not enough housing, not enough housing, not enough housing.
All right, today we're going to expose this entire grift. First, I dug around a little bit, and the nonprofit that she worked for is called LA Family Housing. And according to their IRS Form 990, they received $65 million in government grants last year. And you know how she talked about housing being so important? Well, this is what they're talking about. LA Family Housing is transforming a 1950s motel into apartments for supportive housing. But then you look at the price tag, $60 million for 41 apartments. $60 million. LA has a homeless population of over 75,000, and that's how they think $60 million of taxpayer money should be spent. That's either incompetence or gross negligence, and I'm thinking the latter. Because here's what I think the scheme is with all these affordable housing units that are popping up all over Los Angeles. It's a complete bait and switch scam. Because here's what's going on. The construction of affordable housing developments is subsidized by public funds. In exchange, rents are regulated by covenants, but these covenants carry an expiration date. And once a covenant expires, a building's owner is not required to pay back any public funds. Rather, he is freed from all regulations which kept rents down, able to extract and hoard all future profits. And in the city of Los Angeles alone, there is an estimated 11,000 affordable housing units, which will convert to market rate within the next 5 years. So these massive public housing projects are nothing but a huge money laundering scheme between these real estate developers and these nonprofit administrators who are making monster salaries, and also politicians who I assume are getting kickbacks, allegedly. I mean, how else would you explain this insane statistic that LA is spending $837,000 to house a single homeless person? So I give these people two options. Either A, actually end homelessness, or B, we should demand to defund this whole boondoggle.
Now that video was from 5149 James Lee, who we obviously have to give a major shout out here because he hit the nail directly on the head. And I'm just lucky to be able to piggyback off the work that he did. But we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm glad that he put it into such clear perspective because it's exactly that. It's a racket. And that's how government spending works. That's where the waste comes from. You notice how all this money being spent is always going to these different groups, right? It's always going to a foundation foundation or a research center or some sort of cause. And almost every single time, it's almost as if it's a money laundering front. You got these career bureaucrats and academics who latch on to these issues. Then the government makes these big departments or connects with these big groups to tackle whatever said issue is. They funnel all kinds of money, and then it just becomes a big bloated department that essentially does nothing but collect money and pretend to work. That's exactly what's going on. And in the case of homelessness, I think it's the perfect example. Because what is the aim here? Obviously, to reduce homelessness, to solve the problem, to give hope to some of these people, to provide shelter, rehabilitation, get them back into society. But what have they done? They've done the exact opposite. They're taking all of this money and spending it on a problem, and the results that they're achieving are counter to what their ambition, to what the base mandate actually was. This ought to put it into perspective. We got clips from Gavin Newsom going back, I think, longer than a decade, announcing his plan to tackle homelessness. I mean, basically since the early 2000s, Gavin Newsom's been talking about his plan to end homelessness.
What we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homeless in San Francisco.
How are you going to solve homelessness? What are you going to do as a new mayor? And I say, well, what are you going to do?
Focus on a housing first model, direct access to housing.
Shelter, solve sleep, housing with wraparound and support services, solve homelessness. Homelessness absolutely can be solved.
Laid out a detailed homeless strategy. There's been no intentionality on homelessness in this state for decades. It's not been a focus. I don't think we can solve homelessness. I know we can solve homelessness.
It's been almost 2 decades of empty promises. And what has he delivered? Well, he'll present all kinds of data suggesting that homelessness is going down. California is outperforming the nation and slowing down homelessness, he says. Just look at the chart. Supposedly, Florida's the worst offender. But according to the community notes, Gavin Newsom's post is completely misleading, and California's homelessness is not declining. It's growing year over year. Since 2019, California has spent about $24 billion on homelessness, but in this 5-year period, homelessness increased by about 30,000 to more than 181,000 homeless people on the streets. They're throwing money at the problem, but where's the money going? It's not serving the community, it's going directly into the pockets of investors and big government-connected bureaucrats, whose careers depend on homelessness continuing. They're essentially perpetuating the problem. And that's where the problem lies with this wasteful spending. It's counterproductive. The incentive that's baked into the cake here isn't to solve homelessness, because what would happen to all these career bureaucrats and career politicians if they actually solve the problem? Well, ding, 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 you guessed it. All of a sudden, they wouldn't be needed. They wouldn't have a mandate. Gavin Newsom doesn't have anything to run on if he's not making big promises about solving the homelessness crisis. And so, sure, you could call it wasteful, pork spending, but what it really is government racket. And that's what needs to be exposed. That's the conversation that we need to have. And most importantly, that's what people need to understand. People need to be educated on where this money is going and how it's serving the people. That's the most important thing to be asking. What are we getting out of the money that we are spending? In other words, you got to go past the headline, because Democrats are always trying to pull a fast one on you. And I say Democrats, but I mean really leftists, because it's not just a domestic problem, it's a worldwide problem. These collectivists, these leftoids, these establishment type bureaucrats, well, this is what they do. They embed themselves in government and they essentially leech. And once it starts, it spreads to every component of government, and it just endlessly grows and grows and grows and grows to the point where the bureaucratic state becomes this absolute Goliath that's sucking the life out of the country. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Just 2 interesting clips that I thought were nicely connected and I thought could be used to highlight an important point. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.